This is Zamami. It's a tiny speck of land sitting in the East China Sea, surrounded by some of the clearest, most vibrant water on the planet. Yet, despite looking like a remote South Pacific paradise, it is technically part of Tokyo's administrative orbit, located just a short 4-hour journey from the busiest city on Earth. But how does a place like this actually function in modern Japan? To find out, your journey begins here at Tomari Port, located just outside of Naha's main city center. Getting to Zamami requires navigating a highly strict seasonal ferry schedule. During our visit, options were incredibly limited. Only 2 slow car ferries and just a single daily departure for the high-speed hydrofoil, the Queen Zamami. Step inside the Queen Zamami and you'll find a thoughtful Scandinavian-style interior, light greens, soft woods, and structured leather seats that mirror the natural palette of the island.
You absolutely must pre-book your tickets online during the peak travel season. While we managed to spot a few empty seats on the day we sailed, this boat routinely sells out. A round-trip ticket on Express Hydrofoil will run you roughly 6,080 yen per adult. The crossing takes exactly 50 minutes to an hour. But don't let the polite interior fool you. These waters are notoriously choppy. If you are prone to motion sickness, avoid the bow at all costs. The front of the vessel rocks violently against the open ocean waves. Book your seat towards the tail end of the boat for a much smoother ride. Geographically, the island is split into 3 distinct zones: the rugged west, the central town hub, and the isolated east.
The passenger dynamic is an eclectic mix of local commuters and domestic tourists. Yet, the strangest phenomenon happens the moment the hydrofoil docks on Zamami. The crowd instantly disappears, and the people seemingly vanish into thin air.
We've structured our itinerary exactly as you would approach a tight, single-day trip.
Make no mistake, Zamami is surprisingly large, and local accommodations are incredibly sparse. If you only have a single day on the island like we did, relying purely on your feet is a logistical mistake. You need wheels.
We headed into town and rented a pair of electric bicycles from a local elderly vendor who offers the most competitive rates on the island at just a few thousand yen for the day.
These bikes are built like tanks. Heavy frames, functional front baskets, but impeccably well maintained with more than enough battery capacity to survive a full day of heavy riding.
They do take a moment to get used to, especially on sharp turns. I don't naturally ride a bike often, but the electric pedal assist made it a completely manageable, albeit physically challenging experience. Leaving Zamami Port, the road starts perfectly flat, wrapping tightly around the northwest coast towards the outer beaches.
To understand why this place looks the way it does, you have to look at the broader geography. Zamami is part of the Kerama Islands, a compact volcanic archipelago of over 30 islands clustered roughly 40 kilometers west of Naha. Because they form a tight, natural barrier-style ring, the internal waters are completely shielded from the harsher, muddy currents of the open East China Sea.
The locals call this specific shade of water Kerama Blue.
But the clarity of the water isn't just a geographical fluke, it's a biological ecosystem at work. The islands are surrounded by massive, healthy coral reef networks that account for over 60% of all reef-building coral species in Japan. This vibrant reef acts as a giant, continuous natural water filtration system. Combined with the pristine, coarse, white coral sand that doesn't easily cloud up when disturbed, the underwater visibility easily exceeds 30 meters.
As we push further north along the coast, the flat roads end abruptly. The island's true topography reveals itself, and the terrain turns punishingly hilly. This is where your e-bike's motor earns every single yen.
Historically, these islands served a much darker logistical purpose. During the final months of World War II, the Keramas were utilized as a strategic staging base for attack boats, aiming to disrupt the Allied invasion fleet. Today, that heavy history is largely hidden beneath dense forests of Ryukyu pine and a thriving, quiet ecotourism economy.
Halfway up the northern ridge, we pulled into a covered rest area jutting directly out over the water.
One thing you will consistently notice across rural Japan is the immaculate upkeep of public infrastructure. Even out here, miles from the main town center, the tourist facilities, pavilions, and observation decks are meticulously swept, perfectly maintained, and completely free of litter.
Resuming the climb north, the air begins to pull slightly against the ocean breeze.
What makes modern Zamami fascinating to travel through is how it intentionally balances preservation with presentation. The entire archipelago was designed as a Japanese national park. Because of this strict environmental zoning, you won't find large, towering concrete resort hotels or commercial boardwalks blocking the skyline. The infrastructure is built to blend in, not stand out.
By midday, the physical toll of the island starts setting in. Even with electric pedal assist, conquering the central summit of Zamami in the afternoon heat begins to wear your legs down. We finally reached the peak observation deck on the northern edge of the island.
From up here, the scale of the Kerama archipelago opens up completely. You can vividly trace the shallow turquoise coral shelves contrasting sharply against the ink blue depths of the deeper ocean trenches.
It is incredibly wind-swept and completely exposed. What goes up must come down. The reward for a grueling climb is an incredibly satisfying, gravity-fed coast back down into the central town basin, requiring zero leg power as the jungle canopy flies past.
If you attempt this journey, consider 3 non-negotiable packing requirements: high-grade sunscreen, high-quality polarized sunglasses, and a refillable water bottle. The tropical sun, bouncing off the pure white sand and crystal clear water, creates an intense glare that will completely fry your eyes and skin and leave you dehydrated by 2 p.m. if you come completely unprepared. Right at the edge of town, you'll encounter this bronze statue of a dog staring intently across the water.
This is Shiro. Back in the 1980s, Shiro became a national celebrity in Japan because he would regularly plunge into the ocean currents and swim over 3 kilometers across a rough urban channel to neighboring Aka Island, entirely on his own, just to visit his mate, a dog named Marilyn.
It's a charming, eclectic slice of local folklore that perfectly encapsulates the slow, isolated rhythm of life out here in the Keramas.
By late afternoon, hunger sets in, and this is where rural island realities collide with tourist expectations. Dining options here are incredibly limited. The first 3 spots we targeted were entirely locked up, despite Google Maps listing them as open. Business hours operate strictly on island time. If the weather is nice or if food traffic is low, owners simply close up shop for the day.
We eventually found a small, casual diner operating out of the absolute center of town. We ordered 2 regional staples.
First, taco rice, an iconic Okinawan fusion dish featuring seasoned ground beef, shredded cheese, and lettuce over the white rice. Second, a localized tomato curry, acidic, highly savory, cheesy, and a beautifully bright spin on the traditionally heavy sweet versions of classic Japanese curry.
But operating a kitchen here is a logistical nightmare. Literally every single raw ingredient, piece of produce, and consumer good must be shipped over from Naha via the slow cargo ferry. If rough seas cancel the ferry for a few consecutive days, the restaurant shelves simply go bare.
Yet, despite those supply chain bottlenecks, this is still Japan, which means you will still find a perfectly chilled, fully functional vending machine on almost every single street corner. We even stumbled across a regional Okinawa exclusive citrus-flavored Fanta. We were both incredibly confused by the taste, but deeply grateful for the option. The main town itself is tiny. You can leisurely bike across the entire residential grid in less than 5 minutes. The ferry port is directly attached to the edge of the town square, serving as a literal lifeline and primary gateway to the outside world.
But what happens when real life sets in? There is a tiny local police box and a basic medical clinic staffed by a single resident doctor to handle minor injuries. But there is no major hospital here. If a resident suffers a critical medical emergency or severe trauma, the island relies on a dedicated emergency Medevac system to airlift patients via military helicopter directly back to the mainland.
For our final leg, we headed northeast from the port. This road features the steepest, most unforgiving gradient on the entire island, so steep that a compact construction digger ahead of us was actively struggling to maintain traction as it crawled up the asphalt.
But pushing over this final ridge is non-negotiable, because cascading down the other side of this hill leads you directly to the edge of Furuzamami beach. Arguably the most breathtaking, pristine stretch of sand on the island, and the only major beach accessible without an e-bike if you take the local shuttle bus.
Before heading back to catch our late afternoon return ferry, we made a brief stop in a small, quiet residential community tucked deeper into the northeastern valley.
There are no tourist shops, souvenir stands, or English menus out here, and as the afternoon sun begins to set, it serves as a stark visual reminder. There are fewer than 600 full-time residents living here. Zamami is not just a transient theme park for scuba divers and day trippers. It's a living, breathing, historic community.
As you wait at the dock, you can't help but wonder about the long-term future of these remote communities. The murals painted along the port walls depict a vibrant, useful island lifestyle.
But the underlying demographic data tells a much more complicated story. The island features primary education for young children, but the moment kids reach high school age, they are forced to leave their families behind and move across the ocean to Naha full-time just to attend classes.
This leaves Zamami with a severely aging population base, which raises a fundamental existential question: where is the line for sustainable tourism?
Without the steady influx of tourist yen driven by the Queen Zamami ferry, these isolated communities would almost certainly collapse under the weight of depopulation and economic isolation.
Yet, if the tourism engine scales up too large, it risks permanently shattering the pristine ecosystem and the quiet, slow-paced charm that make the island valuable in the first place.
Zamami is a prime example of this tension, and some would argue has successfully managed to walk that razor-thin line for decades, protecting its waters and its communities while welcoming the world.
Safe travels. We will see you in the next city.